Whether reason will prevail depends only partly upon us. We must hope and strive for the best. We must prepare for the worst.
You know, I keep coming back to, and maybe it's apocryphal, but it's a quote by Benjamin Franklin, who said, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." Now, that's a bit dramatic, right? But I just know firsthand that our strength as a nation doesn't come from firepower, right? It comes from moral discipline. And when we compare ourselves to China, or where we compete with China, if we let security erode our liberty, then we're losing the very thing that we're trying to protect. I try very hard not to be partisan, I think, as I'm representing the forum, because I do want to encourage, ideas and points and counterpoints. I think we're not only concerned about lack of leadership in this kind of ethical realm that you're talking about, but lack of leadership writ large as we're pulling back from multilateral institutions like the UN, like UNESCO. The fact that we're losing our kind of soft power institutions through the U.S. Agency for Global Media or USAID. And we're not, recently we pulled out of the Aspen Institute, right, which is the U.S.'s kind of preeminent foreign policy and national security conference. We didn't even attend it. And so I think we're seeing this retrenchment of U.S. leadership in a number of areas, but certainly around democratic principles. We talk about like Fallujah. As we lose the moral high ground, it makes our foreign policy priorities even harder to achieve. We can't be a bully because we'll lose that ability to influence our allies and partners. Those kinds of things atrophy. That moral high ground is not a direct competition to someone like Russia or China. It's a message to the rest of the world, right? We had something like 50 nations join us in our invasion to Afghanistan because we had the moral high ground, right? We were able to build a coalition and if and go and pursue our foreign policy priorities. That moral high ground puts us, gives the rest of the world an alternative to the model seen by China and Russia. On one hand, there's no one competing, right? It's not great power competition if we're not even in the competition. But it's really important to give these developing nations an alternative. And I like to think that our model, the US's model, is better objectively. And we're starting to see little by little, as time progresses, the kind of cracks in the Chinese model. Whether it's capacity building as they're building infrastructure or predatory financing. I think countries are looking at China as an unreliable partner. And I worry that they're going to look at the US also as an unreliable partner, in which case, flip a coin. But if we can kind of get back to, again, our democratic institutions, our democratic values, and show that there is an alternate path, then I think that's going to benefit us in the long run. Yeah, I think the short-term impact we're seeing, I think, pretty heavily in the healthcare space, right? So drug-resistant TB, for example, hugely on the rise. You need a very specific dosage to keep TB under control, and if there's a supply chain issue, then it kind of becomes drug-resistant. We're going to be seeing more and more, I think, biosecurity hazards globally. And I think over time, we'll see those democratic institutions start to fall apart. I think we've for a long time seen authoritarianism on the rise. But again, now there's nothing to kind of keep it in check. As Nathan maybe mentioned, I cut my teeth in Afghanistan doing counterinsurgency, counterterrorism work. And people don't want to live under a totalitarian regime. They want to have freedoms. They want to have opportunities. But when they're desperate, when their kids are sick, or when their family is hungry, they will do the most expedient thing to keep themselves and their family safe. And sometimes that means turning to whatever power, whatever warlord, whatever aspiring, dictator is in front of them. And so U.S. aid provided medicine, provided food, provided opportunities, in some cases provided just entertainment as a way of keeping people away from the arms of those kind of despots. And now when with the U.S. and U.S. aid no longer there, the fragility has really risen to a point of giving these people no other alternative than to the dictator.